right, Dan Haff, Crooked Label Brewing Company. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. So tell us about your history and what motivated and inspired you to create this brewery.
Okay. I've been in the hospitality industry since I was 14. I'm 60. I was working at a restaurant as a waiter in Seattle, and the owner decided to close over not renew his lease. So we worked very, very hard that year, and he closed in June, and he was going to open a new restaurant in the fall. This was probably about 7-8 years ago, and we had the summer off. He put us on standby, and I took a little road trip, and also decided that I wanted to learn something. And I had a friend of mine owned a brewery and a restaurant, so I called him up and said, "Hey, can I come out and learn how to brew? You know, I'll clean or whatever." And he said, "Okay." He thought I would come one time, and I kept coming out, and week after week. And I started out as an intern, then I became on payroll, and later I became the head brewer. And I just fell in love with the process. Through that whole time, I had another good friend of mine kept saying, "Hey, you know, you should think about trying to do your own thing." And I didn't think that it would be possible, that I didn't have the money to do it or whatnot. But it turns out that if you put your mind to it, you can do things, you can accomplish things. So I started looking, found a place, took a little while. So this whole plan's been in, I started this whole process in 2016, and it's now 2020, almost the end of it. And so it took a little while. Some other friends had a warehouse here in Monroe, and they weren't using all of it, so they suggested that maybe I use part of it. Came over here to Sky Valley Marine and took over half their warehouse here in Monroe, and we took about 6 months to build the place. It was an empty warehouse, an empty shell. And then I put it into hibernation for a little bit because I needed to create some more money. So I just went to work and put my nose to the grindstone and started making some money so that I could re-up it again. And that's what we did this year last year. And when the pandemic hit, I actually treated it as a blessing and used the time to get out here and get things going. And now I'm on the brink of opening it up, and that's kind of where I'm at. So, and my passion for this is I fell in love with the process, and starting with raw ingredients and creating something that people enjoy, and the satisfaction that I see on people's faces is priceless. But the bottom line is it's really not about the beer. It's about the connections, and it's about the relationships. And this is just a stepping stone. This is going to allow me to do a lot more in life. It's going to allow me to help people and be involved in my community, and to fulfill my goals and my dreams in other ways.
Shall we talk about some of the equipment that you have here?
Sure. We can get a little technical if you want. What we have here at Crooked Label Brewing Company is considered a microbrewery. It's a nano brewery. A nano is anything under 5 barrels. Okay, a barrel is 31 gallons. Okay, so our production is 3 barrels, and that goes off the size of the fermenter here, and it's measured from here to here, not the gap down below. Okay, and that's what the government wants to know, because that's how they get their taxes, based on what you produce. So we are a 3-barrel system, and we're considered a nano brewery. We'll start with this vessel here. This is a hot liquor tank. Okay, Basically, it's a container for water. It keeps water in it at all times, and we can keep it at certain temperatures, and that's the water that we'll use for both making the beer and also for cleaning and sanitation. Next to it here, this is the brew kettle. This is where boiling will take place of the liquid. Before yeast is introduced to the sugar water, it's known as wort. And the wort will go in here, and this is the boil kettle, okay? So these two work together. A lot of breweries will have these two items. When we were over at Lewis and Maine, we only had the one, and it worked, and it doubles in the program. It did both a hot liquor tank and a boil kettle.
What was the decision process in not using the same vessel for two different processes?
Here, it basically expense. Over at the other brewery, they didn't have the money at first to get both vessels. And when I purchased this equipment, I had the vessels. So that was a part of the deal.
Oh.
So I went with the ability to have it. It's to our advantage because I always have a hot water source, and that's a good thing.
So does that help increase your brewing capacity time-wise?
It helps with productivity, yes.
Okay.
It lowers the amount of time.
All right.
Yeah. I actually ran into that problem on the last brew. I personally made a little error, not with the beer, but on myself, and it cost me about an hour on the brew day. So because I started adding cold water to a vessel before the temperature was where I wanted it to be for something else, and I didn't have hot water available, and I had to wait for it to heat up, and it cost me about an hour.
All right.
So this won't do that because I'll have both. I'll always have hot water available.
Okay.
So, moving on, this is the mash tun, and this vessel here, this is where we put the grain. It's called when it's been milled, it's called grist. And what we use in brewing is malt and malted barley. And what malted barley is it's when the seed is germinated slightly, and that means it starts to sprout, and they stop it, okay, by heating it up. And what it does is it causes an enzyme breakdown that the yeast prefers. And when we mill it, we grind it into a grist that we're after the starches, we're after the sugars. And that's gonna be what the yeast wants. And we put the grain in here, we add water to it based on a certain temperature, usually right around in the 150 to 155 degrees. And that's going to give you the mouthfeel. And 1 degree of separation on all that will affect how the beer tastes in your mouth. It'll give you mouthfeel is when you're feeling like you're biting into a biscuit or something like that. That's the feeling that you're going to get. So the beer, the mash creates with water. We create a liquid, and that liquid is known as wort. Okay. Before yeast is introduced to it, it's called wort. Good brewers make the wort, and the yeast makes the beer, okay? So then it goes from here, goes from the mash tun to the boil kettle, okay? And we want just the liquids, not the solids. And then the leftover grain, we have some farmers that I have connected with, and they come and they get the grain and they feed it to their animals. I've got farmers that feed cattle and llamas and chickens and goats and pigs right now. So they come in and get the grain, and it's really cool, because then it helps me because then I don't have to put it into the landfill and pay for garbage disposal, and I feel like it's repurposing it. So we're also using the grain. We will be making dog biscuits with the grain, and there's other uses for it. Eventually I want to make pretzels. So with the spent grain too. So
dogs like the spent
grain? Love it.
Really?
They love it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's got a sweetness to it, and it looks like oatmeal, but it's got more of a malty flavor, and they love it. They love it dearly.
Huh.
Yeah. So then it goes in the boil kettle, and we run the recipe based on what the recipe says. We add hops to it when the recipe tells us to, and whatnot. Then we move the wort through this machine here. This is called a wort chiller or a heat exchanger. It's basically like a radiator. So what you got going on with these ports is you got the hot wort going through one end and you got cold water going through the other. So there's these plates, they all face up against each other like this. Series of plates. So the cold water is going on the one side, the hot is going on the other. So you go from boiling temperature, 212 degrees, roughly about, as it's settled and whatnot, it's about 185 roughly, to going into the fermenter at yeast-friendly temperature, which is about 70 degrees within seconds. So through the heat exchanger. So this is a valuable piece of equipment. Then I'll go into the fermenter, and when it is at proper temperature, anywhere from between 65, roughly around 70 degrees, we add yeast to it. The moment yeast touches the wort, it becomes beer instantly. It's now known as beer. And what happens is the yeast, when it interacts, it will consume the sugars in the wort. And the byproduct of that are two things. It's CO2 and alcohol. So a good brewer will make good wort. The yeast makes the beer. Okay, so our job is to manage the yeast and take really good care of the yeast, and then the yeast will do the job for us. And when we throw the yeast into the fermenter, it's known as a pitch, and we're pitching the yeast. So you'll hear a lot of jokes along those lines as well about pitches, and my pitches do this, my pitches do that. So my pitches make the beer. So there you go. So these are my fermenters. I have 1, 2. These are 3-barrel fermenters, and then the little guys here, these are 1-barrel fermenters. And if you remember, I told you that a barrel is 31 gallons. Okay, so these are 31 gallons, and these are 93 gallons. Okay.
So are you using the smaller fermenters for specialty beers?
My goal eventually is to do a lager. A lager is a lower fermentation. It's called lower fermentation. You have high and low. There's a difference between lagers and ales, or pilsners and ales. Pilsners they are a bottom fermenting beer, and ales are a top fermenting beer. That means temperature. Okay, pilsners will ferment at a lower temperature. They like temperatures that are in the 60 range, 60 degrees. Ales like temperatures that are in the 70 range, 70, 75. A lot of breweries primarily lean towards ales because it's quicker. You can get a beer within a week to 10 days, 3 weeks. Usually I take about 3 weeks, where a pilsner or a lager is going to take you 6 to 8 weeks. So that's why a lot of breweries don't do it, because you're going to tie up vessels. So my plan is to try and do some lagers and use these two for that to start with, and play around with it. Lagers are more efficient. They tend to be more drier beers. They'll go to a much drier consumption of the sugars, where ales tend to be a little bit more sweeter because there's leftover sugars usually at the end. So,
what's your racking process?
Racking is where we don't filter. Racking is where you're moving it from one vessel to the other, and basically what you're doing is you're moving the liquid and leaving the solids behind. Okay, so
where are those vessels that you?
I use the vessels that I have here.
Oh,
okay.
So you're just using the fermenters.
There is a vessel behind you there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That is both a carbonation tank and a holding tank. Okay. So what I can do is, you can do everything in the one vessel. You can do everything, and a lot of breweries do. They do everything in the one vessel, start to finish. I don't do that. Okay. What I could do, if I felt the need, is I could move my beer when it's ready. I lower the temperature, I crash it, the yeast goes to sleep and goes down into the cone. Then I move it from here to there, and I can hold it in this other fermenter at proper temperature. But I also have in my cooler, which is outside, I have holding vessels, and so I'll move the beer into the holding vessel, and I'll have it conditioned in there for a week or so, and then I'll move it into that other tank there, the carbonation tank, and I'll carbonate it, force carbonate it, and then keg it.
So you have available to you, you have a pumping system that you can go outside to your
Correct.
refrigeration unit. Okay.
Correct.
And that's probably the thing over there on
Nope,
the
it
wall?
sits right here.
Oh, okay. That's your pump.
That's my pump. For me, my beers will be racked, or we don't filter, but they'll be racked, solids left behind, liquids brought over, four times roughly before they go into your pint.
Mm-hmm.
So into your glass. It's a
Yeah.
cool thing. Most of my beers come out pretty clear. I'm very proud of that.
What would you like to say?
Crooked Label Brewing is it's a passion. I have a passion for beer, and I like people, and it's all of that connected. I like to make good quality product. I want my beers are made in a classic style. They tend to be more malt-forward. I lean more towards a Bavarian style of brewing, German style, which is leans a little bit more on the malt, a little heavy on the caramel. I do use a lot of hops. I can, various hops, but I'm more inclined to add more ingredients because I want flavor to come through. I really want flavor to come through. I want people to be very happy and satisfied with what they have. I don't want it to be hints of things. I want it to be the flavor to be there, and that's what I strive for. I've got about 25 beers in my repertoire, and I've got about another 25 in my head, in mind. So you'll be seeing a lot of different varieties. Look for it. Crooked Label Brewing Company. I have a lot of connections with restaurants in the greater Seattle area. Hopefully we'll be getting into quite a few of them as time goes on.
All right. Dan Haff, brewer at Lewis and Maine, and also
Crooked Label Brewing.
Crooked Label Brewing.
Yeah.
So tell the ghost story.
All right. Well, here at Lewis and Maine, the brewery used to be called Twin Rivers Brewing Company. The new owners changed the name to Lewis and Maine. This building's been around for quite a while, and we've had experiences with apparitions and strange behavior from time to time. So,
As opposed to like strange behavior from your guests.
yeah, that too, and the fellow brewers too. So absolutely. But we one night I was here by myself, and basically from one side you can look down the hallway, and you can see the other hallway heading towards the restrooms of the main restaurant. And I saw an apparition. I saw the corner of my eye. It was like out of Ghostbusters. It was shiny and all that. And I saw it, and I kind of did a double take. It was out of the corner of my eye. And then I went into the hair on my arms stood up, and then I went into the cooler, and the hair on my arms went down. I'm in 39-degree temperature, and I'm not cold. And then as soon as I open the door and walk back out, the hair on my arm stands back up again. And I heard something, and I looked, and I saw the apparition again. So twice in one night. And I went over, and I was the only person here. And I stuck my head down the hallway, and I turned the corner and put my head down the hallway, and I went, "I'm cool with you if you're cool with me." And I said, "I'm only going to be about another 15 minutes." And so I believe that the ladies' restroom is haunted. There was at one point years ago, there was a murder took place in front of the building here. A lady was stabbed to death. She got stabbed 17 times.
Oh, nice.
Like that,
I like it. I love love stories.
By her ex-husband.
Yeah, I love stories.
So there's that, awesome. And the new chef owner of this place, my good friend Josh Soult, he tells me, he goes, "Oh, I don't believe in any of that spiritual stuff, but at the end of the night when we're locking up, he won't go down by the ladies' restroom."
That's funny.
I go, "The light's on down there," and he goes, "That's okay, I'll just leave it on." It's all good. It's all good.
Tell us the history of Lewis and Maine and how long you've been here and what you've been doing.
The brewery, again, like I mentioned earlier, was called Twin Rivers. And Twin Rivers is one of the oldest breweries in Snohomish County. The Historical Society said that we claim ourselves as a historical brewery after 25 years. And so the brewery's been around since 1994. These tanks actually were built by the prisoners in the prison here in Monroe.
Really?
The correctional facility, yeah, in their welding room, or their welding project that they do with the prisoners and teaching them things. They had a welding class, and the guys welded these from Elliott Bay Metal Fabricating, did a deal with the prisoners. So they built this, okay? We actually have had one of the guys who worked on these in the prison, who had gotten out of prison, came by and stopped by and said hello, and he goes, I actually worked on these, so.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So, and I was really nice to that guy, because I don't know why he was in prison, so they won't
Probably wasn't stabbing some lady 17 times.
I don't know. I never know. It's many people takes to make the world go round. So here, my history with Twin Rivers, or Lewiston, Maine, is about 7 years, and I started brewing. I got an interest in it. I had an opportunity. I had some time off, and a good friend of mine owned this place at the time, and I wanted to learn something. And so I had a summer off from work, and how often does that happen in your adult life? Not very often. So I wanted to learn something, so I asked if I could come out and learn how to brew beer. And he thought I'd be a one-hit wonder and come out one time, but I just kept coming. And so I started being an intern, and unpaid, and would come out once a week and help with the brew day and learn how to make beer. And then that evolved into a full-time gig, and eventually I became the head brewer, and I was the head brewer here at Twin Rivers for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity presented itself where I thought I wanted to try and open my own place, and some good friends of this brewery here had a warehouse here in town that they weren't using the whole facility for, and so they gave me an opportunity, and that's how Crooked Label came about too. So yeah, and so I've been brewing here at Lewiston, Maine for about 7 years, and I'm going to keep that going until God tells me not to, and we're going to keep that rolling, and we'll make some good beer here. So yeah.
Yeah, so you have won a gold medal for one of your beers you produced here.
Yes, in 2018 we were asked to participate in a brewing contest for Washington State Brewers Choice Awards. And basically what happened is, for the whole Washington State, the brewers, individual brewers, were randomly chosen from different breweries in Washington State to be the judges of this contest. And it was a blind tasting, and they chose the different categories as to who would win medals. And the red ale that we had here at Twin Rivers at the time won a gold medal. So we were rated the best red in Washington State in 2018. So very proud of that. It was a very surreal experience at the time. And that's really, to be honest, that's the only contest I've ever entered. But
did Adam enter you, or did you?
We entered 5 beers, and that we won 1 award. And that
Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
Wish my success rate was 20%.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, please subscribe to Brian at Mack-n-Cheeze on YouTube. Just press that subscribe button and you'll never miss another episode. Hey, and you got that going for you, right? All right, cheers, have a great day.